Great. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol nהיה bidbareh.
Amen.
Chaim, everybody. Chaim. Chaim Billy Bracha. Life and blessings. So, a new captain becomes a leader of a company of soldiers, and he learns about everything that goes on in this company. And he sees two soldiers are guarding a bench. All right, that's pretty unusual. So he asks why? What are they guarding the bench for? Well, previous commander ordered it. All right, fine. Calls up the previous commander, who is now a major. So the captain's speaking to the major, and he's asking him what's going on. Why are two guards guarding this particular bench? So I don't know exactly, but that's what I got from my previous commander, who now happens to be a lieutenant colonel. I think you better ask him why he ordered it. All right. Goes back to the previous commander, lieutenant colonel at this point. And he said, I'll be quite frank. I got my instructions from now someone who was a general, who became a general, but he's retired now. I think you should ask the 4-star general. I don't know. This is what I was given. So he reaches to the 4-star general. He asks him, my high, what's going on? Why are these two guards guarding the bench? He says, what? Wait, the bench is still wet with paint? So, we definitely need to follow instructions. But the question is on leadership. Followers need to follow the leader. The leader needs to know what to lead with. So, what does it mean to lead, and what qualities do we need to lead? We are all followers, and we're all leaders. The Rebbe was, in our eyes, the greatest leader. In his own estimation, he was the greatest follower of his Rebbe, of the previous Rebbe. So let's understand how to follow, how to lead, what's involved. Okay, so this week's parsha, Behaaloscha. Whoever can say that, power to you. Most of you, I'm not even going to test you. It's a tough one. Behaaloscha. Actually, the very word indicates a concept of what it means to be a follower and a leader. Behaaloscha, when you kindle the candle, the flame, the lamp, when you kindle the light, we're all lights that need to be kindled. When you kindle the light, the mitzvah is that you have to make sure that it's that the flame goes up on its own, that's able to stand on its own. Because sometimes you can put the one candle to another candle to ignite it, but it's not strong enough. The light, it's not powerful, it's not attached well enough to the wick, and it may extinguish. So the mitzvah is to make sure that you bring it sufficiently that it can rise up on its own. So likewise, when we touch someone else's life, that they're able to rise up and stand up on their own and be a light, a beacon of light on their own. So let's understand what that means. What does it mean to be a beacon of light? And that we can help others to stand on their own. So in this week's Torah portion, we are told about the Paschal Lamb offering. And before we get into the Parsha, let us back up for a moment. We know this part of our history very well. God tells Moses, tell the Jewish people in the land of Egypt, before we go out, this is on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that tell the people on the 10th of the month that they should take a lamb, bring it into their home, and thereafter on the 14th, on the eve of the Exodus from Egypt, slaughter the lamb, put the blood on the doorposts, on the inside of the doorposts, the Jewish home, and I will pass over. Right? So the Paschal Lamb offering was that offering that we had in Egypt that would be the indicator of our trust and faith in God, that he will pass over the Jewish homes and he will kill the firstborn Egyptian, and the firstborn Jew will be saved. You all know that story. We all saw the movie, right? At that time, God instructs the Jewish people that this mitzvah of having the Paschal lamb, which you will slaughter it on the eve of Passover, eat the meat thereof that night, which is Seder night. The Seder night, right? You will have it with matzah and bitter herbs together. You will celebrate the holiday. When will you celebrate the holiday? When I will bring you to the land of the Canaanites, that you will eventually come and you will inherit the land. And then you will fulfill this mitzvah in the land, which, like many mitzvahs, God tells us that this will be a mitzvah that you will fulfill in the land when you come to the land, right? This is one of them. Now, that's the background. So in this week's Parsha, which is 10 months after the Torah is given at Mount Sinai, 6th of Sivan, approximately. It's a little after the Mishkan has been erected. And when was the Mishkan erected? The second year, which month? The month of Nisan. Which day? Rosh Chodesh. Last week's Parsha, right? The Nisim, the chieftains of each tribe, brought for 12 days in a row, starting with Yehuda, Nachshon ben Aminadav, Nachshon the son of Aminadav. He brought on the first day of Rosh Chodesh Nisan. In the second year, this is approximately 10 months after, just a little under 10 months after the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, inaugurating the Mishkan, the home of God, tabernacle. He brings on that day, and for 12 days thereafter. Now, somewhere in the very beginning of that month, God gives a surprise command. And the command is as follows. Let's share the screen. This week's Torah portion, Behaaloscha. God spoke to Moses in Sinai Desert in the first month, the second year of their exodus from Egypt, saying, the children of Israel should bring a Paschal offering in its appointed time. The Jews were, wow, delighted. They weren't told this before. In Egypt, they were told that you're going to do this mitzvah when you come to the land. But now God surprises them delightfully. And about, approximately 2 weeks before Pesach, the beginning of the month, he tells them, you might not know how you're going to mark the occasion of going out of Egypt. Well, I'm telling you, I want you to bring a Paschal lamb offering. The Jews are rejoiced. Again, because this is unexpected. Now, this is a one-off, standalone command from God. How do our ancestors deal with this? Well, the verse continues and says in the parsha, the children of Israel brought the Paschal offering in the Sinai desert in the afternoon of the 14th day of the month. They did it in accordance with all that God had instructed Moshe. They did everything to the T. Dotted every I, slashed every T, crossed every T. And as the Sifri explains in Medrash, says this was said in praise of the Israelites. They did precisely as Moshe had instructed. Beautiful. Now, it doesn't end here. The excitement that the Jews had in this opportunity to fulfill this mitzvah. But then another event occurred as a result of this. Continuing in the parsha, several men were in a state of ritual and contamination by virtue of contact with a dead body, and were thus unable to bring the Paschal offering on that day. They approached Moshe and Aaron on that day, and they said to them, "We are impure by virtue of contact with a dead body." Lama nigara, they say. Why should we lose out and be unable to bring the offering of God to God among the children of Israel at the appointed time? So let's appreciate this for a moment. Let's understand that this is something very powerful, very unique, and very dramatic, moving story that's going on right here. The Jews get a surprise mitzvah, firstly, something that they were expecting only to fulfill when they come into the land of Israel, not in the desert. And all of a sudden, God tells them, I want you to do this. Right? Okay, and they do it. They do it joyfully. They do it precisely as they are told to do it. But doesn't end there. There are those that are impure because they came in contact with a corpse. They couldn't purify themselves to be sufficiently prepared to bring the Paschal Lamb offering. They have, this is the original FOMO. They have the fear of missing out. They are missing out. God gives this historic opportunity to do a mitzvah and they can't do it. Right? Hey, we don't want to miss out. Gentlemen, did you ever miss an anniversary? What happens if you miss an anniversary? As the phrase goes, you snooze, you lose. You miss an anniversary, oi. Right? There's no makeup for that. Forget it. But here they want to make up for it. That's how intensely they desire to do this mitzvah. And guess what? God gives it to them. God gives them that they could make up the mitzvah. And what's that called? Anybody?
Second Passover?
Pesach Sheni.
Thank you. Second Passover, Pesach Sheni, on the 14th of Iyar, the following month. In the parsha, it tells us. Parsha tells us, and Hashem says, you can make up for it if you are. And here it's interesting, it says, whether you're impure or distant. Because now this becomes a mitzvah that will be for generations, second Passover. That if you didn't have the opportunity the first time because you were impure, or as the Torah tells us, you were distant from Jerusalem. You couldn't make it on time, right? That you'll have another opportunity 1 month later on the 14th of Iyar, a makeup. God grants that to the Jewish people, which just shows on a beautiful symbiotic love between God and the Jewish people. God commands us, we do it dutifully. Not only do we do it dutifully, But those who are missing on the opportunity want to have the opportunity, lama nigara, they desire that. We learned in the mimer today, right? Ahava, Hebrew word for love, is in the word is ava, which means desire. When you have a desire for something and a strong desire for something, that's an expression of love. The Jewish people that are impure, contaminated because they came in contact with a corpse and therefore they could not bring the offering, being that the offering had to be done in purity, they have a strong desire, meaning a strong bond and a love to God that they want to do this mitzvah. And God's great love that he first gives us the opportunity to do the mitzvah is further expressed by the fact that he gives another opportunity for those who missed out on the opportunity, that they have a second chance, second Passover. Is that clear? Okay. Now that we know all about this, let's go back to text 1a. And where is it? What does it say over here? God spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert the first month of the second year. First month, Nisan, right? As we all know. That's when he spoke to the Jewish people. So just keep in mind, we are in the third Torah portion, chapter 9, in the book of Numbers, of Bamidbar, and we're speaking about the month of Nisan, the beginning of the month of Nisan. It's not Rosh Chodesh, but it's in the beginning, right? And that's when the instruction was given to fulfill the mitzvah of the Paschal Lamb offering. Now, if we go to the beginning of the book of Numbers, this is how it begins. On the first day of the second month of the second year after the exodus from Egypt, God spoke to Moshe in the Sinai desert in the tent of meeting, saying, count the congregation of children of Israel by families following their fathers' houses, a head count of every male according to the number of their names. Is anything incongruent between text 3 and text 1? Well, look at the date over here. What month is this? Second month, month of Iyar, which of course comes after the first month. So the book of Numbers begins in the second month of the second year. And in chapter 9, we go back a month to the first month of the second year. My high. Why? Why are things out of order like this? Why isn't there a chronological order? So we've learned the concept before, and Rashi brings it up right here in our verse, chapter 9, verse 1. It says, Ein mukdam u'mochar b'Torah. Ein seder mukdam. There's no order of events in the Torah, is not chronological. Now, the norm is that things are chronological, but there's an exception to the rule, right? And Nachmanides, right, not Maimonides, Rambam, but Nachmanides lived about 100 years after the Rambam. So he explains as follows. The entire Torah is chronological order, except for the occasions when the Torah specifies that the dates are out of order. Even in those cases, it's for a good reason and a proper purpose. So, of course, that leaves us with the question, why? Why did the Torah change the order? Why does the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, the fourth book, begin in the second month with the count of the Jewish people, as opposed to the first month, which would be, with this story of the Paschal Lamb offering in the second year. Now, let's make this question even stronger, because on its own right, that itself is a question. The fact that it does change order, there's meaning behind that, right? It's noteworthy. For that alone, we need to understand what is noteworthy over here, right? And the truth is, here in particular, it's very noteworthy. Why? Why is it noteworthy over here? And because this is an amazing story of the love between God and the Jewish people, and Jewish people and God. This story, the Paschal Lamb offering, which would be a beautiful way to begin the book. As a matter of fact, if you look at every beginning of all the 5 books, we see that it emphasizes something very positive in the relationship of the Jew and God. Let's take a look at the word Bereshis, Genesis. Right? The very first Rashi. Rashi asks the question, why does the Torah start with creation? Should it start with mitzvahs? The first mitzvah, Chodesh Elochem, actually, which connects with the Paschal Lamb offering, right? You had to know when to go out of Egypt, and the Paschal Lamb went to offer it, so we had to know when the first of the month is. So that's the first mitzvah, to sanctify the new month. So Rashi asks the question, why don't we start the Torah with that? And what's the answer? So I want to bring the great power of the Jewish people, that the nations of the world are going to claim that you are robbers, you stole the land of Israel from the Canaanites. So therefore I come and state here that the Torah was, that God is a creator of heaven and earth, and he gave the land to whoever he wanted, and took it from whoever he wanted and gave it to the Jewish people. In other words, expressing the love that God has for the Jewish people, and the land of Israel belongs to us. It's a gift to us, right? They'll be the naysayers. Well, God is the one that says otherwise. The land belongs to the Jewish people. If you look at Shmois, the book of Exodus, it begins with the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, which is redundant because the book of Genesis ends with the tribes and the family, and the families. Why is it repeated? To bring out the endearment of the 12 tribes, 12 sons, the 12 tribes, and those that went down to Egypt. That each one has a name, each one, right? They're not a number. Each one's got a name. Each one's inherently valuable. Again, about the beautiful relationship, God and the Jewish people going down to Egypt. Then Vayikra, Leviticus. Vayikra means he called. As Rashi explains, usually it says Vayidaber, and God spoke. What do you mean he called? Rashi says he called with love to give the mitzvah to Moshe and to the Jewish people. God calls us in an endearment with love to give us the mitzvah. The mitzvah bringing an offering. We can give an offering to God. And then, of course, our book, Bamidbar. It also is speaking about an endearment, because how does the book begin? Well, let's get back to that in a moment. Then finally, and the last book is Dvarim, Deuteronomy, and it begins with the rebuke of the Jewish people. But the rebuke of the Jewish people is only hinted in the words. It's not openly said by Moses, by Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because of the endearment, the love that he has. He only hints to it, but doesn't openly speak of their negativity, their challenges, and the things that they need to improve upon. As a leader, he has to bring it out, but he does it in a loving way by only hinting to it. Now, getting back to our book, it's also, Bamidbar also begins with a lovingness of God to the Jewish people. How? It's called the Book of Numbers. God is counting. We count those things that are valuable to us. God is counting the Jewish people. So he tells us to count those are from 20 to 60, then the Levites, the count of the Levites, and a lot of counting going on, because as Rashi says, they are dear to me, and by the count, I show my endearment to each and every single one. Okay, that being said, that's wonderful, beautiful, right? And here the count is to see how many, the count was in order to see how many emerged from Egypt. God counted. After the golden calf, and how many had died, God counted. When the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was erected in the first of Nisan, God counted. And again in the following month, God also counts, showing the endearment of the Jewish people. But that being said, the endearment that shows versus the endearment that we brought an offering, that God commands us, and we do exactly as he commands us. And not only that, but those who were impure have a strong desire that they want to bring the offering. That shows on a real love story, a symbiotic love between the Jew and God and the Jew. Seemingly, that would be a much more dramatic story to begin the book of Numbers. I remember, the question is, it actually comes before. This was in the beginning of the month, of the first month, whereas the counting in the beginning of the book of Numbers, of Bamidbar, is in the second month. So if the principle is that you begin a book with something that's endearing between the Jewish people and God Almighty, this seems to be a much greater endearment. Firstly, God gives the Jew a mitzvah just because, something that we're not obligated, but he wants to give another, as we know, mitzvah means connection, another manner to connect. The Jewish people fulfill the mitzvah with great enthusiasm. Thirdly, those who are impure demand another chance. Lama nigara, why should we lose out? And God gives the second chance, which is unusual, where we don't see this kind of instance in another mitzvah. And the words of the Rebbe explains. God issued a special commandment after the tabernacle was erected, from which the Jews were otherwise exempt in the desert. This demonstrates their greatness and God's love for them. Then there is the fact that the Jews fulfilled this commandment perfectly in accordance with all that God had commanded Moshe. Moreover, the story flatters the Jews by demonstrating just how much they yearn to fulfill this commandment. Even those who are impure by virtue of contact with a dead body and could not bring the offering demanded and argued, Lama nigara, why should we lose out from bringing this offering in its appointed time? God's love for the Jews is further expressed by the fact that God accepted the demand in it and entreaty. Why should we lose out? He granted them the opportunity to fill in the gap by providing a make-up date for the Paschal Lamb, which would be Pesach Sheni, the second Passover, on the 14th of the year, a month later. I mean, it doesn't get more dramatic than that. That seems to be what we should showcase. But yet, we don't. The census is what begins out of order, out of chronological order. The book of Bamidbar begins with the census in the second month. Okay. So, first of all, questions clear? Yeah? Are good? Yeah? All on the edge of your seat to want to know the answer? All right. We'll see you next week. Okay. We hopefully we will see you next week. But in the meantime, stay tuned. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. No. I that was a joke. Who just left? Someone just left. I missed it. Who just left?
We just left.
I don't think she had a name. It was just a picture of a camera.
Oh.
Yeah.
My gosh. Must have been a first-time person that doesn't know my corny jokes. Oh my gosh. Terrible. Yeah, you're right. Who was that? Okay. Oh my God. I have to do tshuva now. All right. So interesting. In Bereshis, it shows God's love for us because it speaks about him as creator and that he gives us the land. Shmoi speaks about repeating about the tribes, right? And the endearment of those who went down to Egypt. Each one has a name. Vayikra, God calls out to Moses and to every Jew to bring them close. How do you bring close? By bringing an offering. Karbonos, it means a sacrifice, an offering. And the same word, carbon, means closeness, to bring close to God. And God, the word vayikra means to call an endearment. And then, as we said in Deuteronomy, also there, speaking about the rebuke of the Jewish people, but in a hinted manner, because this is before Moshe to pass on, and therefore he needs to give over the reins to Joshua, and needs to speak to the people to prepare them properly, and including in that is the rebuke of the people, but it's done in a soft, endearing way. And of course, in our book, the question that we have, why is the order change of chronological order when seemingly this story, it says something beautiful about the relationship here? The difference over here, though, is it also takes in the Jewish people and their relationship with God, right? Showing their greatness, not just God's love for us, which sometimes when you showcase, someone's greatness, a person, right? Not God showcasing it, but when you talk to a friend about somebody, right? You have to be careful who you say something good about. First of all, you have to be honest about it, of course, and not, be embellishing. But moreover, sometimes you could be speaking to somebody who dislikes that person, and you're saying good stuff about them. And that could be what's called avak lashon hara. It could be like lashon hara, because you are now perhaps evoking in them, or provoking them and evoking within them to say something ill about that individual. something not nice to counter. No, especially 2 Jews, 3 opinions. If you got an opinion, I have a different one, right? So you got a good opinion of this person? Well, so there could be some negativity that will come out. So when it comes to God and the senses, well, that's about God, and he's demonstrating his love. Okay. But there is nothing reciprocal. But in our story, there's something reciprocal. And that has a potential risk. And therefore, Rashi answers and says that potential risk may come forward. And what is that? Says Rashi, why did the Torah not begin with the Paschal offering? That's our question, right? Being chronological order, and it shows even a greater love, the symbiotic love between the Jew and God and the Jew, because it is a disgrace to the Jews that throughout the 40 years of their sojourn in the desert, they only brought this one Paschal offering. Ooh. So on one hand, it shows something beautiful, but on the other hand, hey, if there's such a beautiful love affair over here, what happened the other 39 years in the desert, or 38 years left, right? They only brought that 1 year. Now, granted, they were not required to do it. Why did they bring it in the second year? Because God commanded to do it that year. He didn't say do it every preceding year, right? Or for the years thereafter. He didn't command that. He only commanded for that year. So they weren't required to do it. Okay, but just because you're not required, does that mean you don't desire to do it? Text number 9, the Morale of Prague says an exemption from a mitzvah is not equivalent to doing a mitzvah. When we say one who is unable is exempted by God, we mean that there's no punishment. Nevertheless, it is not the same as doing the mitzvah and receiving the merit. Here too, though that they were exempt, it was a missed opportunity. Missed opportunity. Not an obligation that you have to do it, but a missed opportunity. The Paschal Lamb is different from all other commandments that were not obligatory in the desert. Those commandments were only activated when they entered Israel, right? Because so many of the mitzvahs are pending on the land. In other words, to bring Truma Meiser, to take tithes from the land and give it to the Levites and to give to the Kohen and so on and so on. That's pending on the land in Israel when you sow the land. Here they got manna from heaven, so they had no such mitzvah and so many other things. Bikurim, first fruits. How are you going to bring first fruits? They didn't have they didn't have fruits that they were growing in the desert. All these mitzvahs were dependent on the land, so they were only obliged. But the Paschal offering had already been offered in the desert once before, and the Jews were exempted in the ensuing years. Therefore, missing out on the mitzvah is considered the loss despite the exemption. So yes, they weren't obliged. God only obliged them that year, but it was an opportunity, and it was a missed opportunity. You might say, well, I mean, come on. Doesn't mean missed opportunity, but there isn't a command. What do you expect from them? So as the Rebbe explains in this week's Sicha, every child wonders why the Jews didn't demand the Paschal offering during the 39 subsequent years in the desert. Why should we lose out? Isn't that what the ones who were contaminated said? Why did they not tell God that they wanted to bring the Paschal offerings? Especially since they knew that this offering saved them in Egypt and brought them about their redemption. When a mere handful of Jews demanded, why should we lose out? God, right? But when they were commanded and they were impure. It was a handful of Jews. How many Jews were impure? Whatever. Well, it wasn't the fifth column even. It was a small amount of people. God granted them the opportunity to bring the Paschal offering. So if all Jews would have pleaded for an opportunity to bring the Paschal offering, God would surely have consented. It was therefore disgraceful that throughout the 40 years of their sojourn in the desert, they only brought this one Paschal offering. Had they demanded of God, why should we lose out? Lama nigara. They surely would have succeeded and been permitted to bring the Paschal offering during those 40 years. So, if they love God so much, as they seemingly did in the second year of the first month, when God commanded and to bring the Paschal lamb offering, and they did exactly as he told them to do, and then those who were missing the opportunity cry out to God and demanded, Lama nigara, why should we lose out? Well, isn't that a signpost to you that if God accepts that, consents to that, to a few people, that when a majority of people now will come and say, hey, we want to do this again next year, and God will consent to that. That means that's a disgrace of the people. Now again, do I have an excuse? Yeah, it can be excused, but there's never an excuse for using an excuse. They could have demanded. Sad truth is they were very complacent. Therefore, the Torah hides the story, smuggles it in. I mean, it is a story of our people. How do we know that it's the truth, the Torah? Because it does say negative things about our people, right? As opposed to every other history. Not that this is a history, but it's not given a front page placement. Too much attention would generate wrong attention. Therefore, it's buried in chapter 9. Is that clear? Well, that answers maybe the Jews. I mean, it doesn't answer why they were I guess complacency doesn't need an explanation, right? Complacency is exactly what it is. Complacency. You don't need an explanation for complacency. That's the human condition. But nonetheless, that's disgraceful. But complacency is not a word that you could use in reference to Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen. Moses and Aaron. Can't use that word, complacency. They're holy people. They're tzaddikim. They cared very much. Everything was of infinite value to them. Well, if that's the case, then why did Moshe ask? Ask on behalf of the people. The people aren't asking. Then you ask. And here comes a beautiful teaching of the Rebbe. By Moshe Rabbeinu, even though there's no doubt that this was a simple thing for him to conclude that if the people aren't asking, well, as a leader, do I not ask on their behalf? Well, what would come out if he would do that? The dignity of the Jewish people would be compromised. They didn't have the sensibility to ask, and he would ask. The Jew wouldn't look good. So Rebbe explains in this week's parsha, this week's sikha, Jewish leaders are primarily and completely invested in thinking about the people and doing things for the people. Moshe even risked his life for the Jewish people. He didn't merely risk his bodily life. He also risked his spiritual life. He said to God, if you don't forgive the Jewish people from the sin of the golden calf, erase me from your book that you wrote. Moshe is called Moshe Rabbeinu. Rabbeinu means our teacher. A real teacher is someone who's prepared to forgo their life for the sake of the Jewish people. If you don't forgive the Jews, count me out. I have nothing to do with your book. Because the people are more important. You want to destroy them? Not interested. True Jewish leadership, or true Jewish people, period. They don't think about themselves for their own good. They're dedicated to others and the good of others. They belong to the people. Therefore, they don't ask Moshe and Aaron, because if they would, yeah, they'll get a mitzvah, but they'll bring upon disgrace upon the people. And they're there for the people first and foremost. And they wouldn't do that. I see, this was from the previous reading. I gave the wrong one. I'm going to read the right one. This one that was on there previously. Had Moshe and Aaron pleaded the privilege of offering the Paschal lamb, it would have been granted to them and to all Jews. However, this would have compounded the disgrace of the Jewish people. It would have demonstrated that the Jews could have secured the privilege of this offering with a simple request, but didn't. To preserve the people's dignity, these faithful shepherds forewent the spiritual gain they could have occurred by pleading for and bringing the non-obligatory offering. So, true faithful shepherd cares about the dignity of another and is there for another, totally given to them, given over, even though there's an opportunity here that you can gain something in your own life and the lives of the rest of the Jewish people. They could have had this opportunity to bring this offering, but not at the expense of the disgrace of someone. Very powerful notion. This is true leadership. And this notion that the flock that you lead is your mission, is your purpose, and what you were created for, to mentor God's children. To such a degree, true greatness is there's nothing else but that. You're nothing for yourself. No personal consideration. Not even your spiritual consideration. Forget about, dinner. No personal life, no spiritual life. Your life is the people. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. That's true leadership. In 1986, there was a trial of the books, the Rabbi's library, that was in the New York Court of Appeals. And the Rebbe's nephew was stealing books from the library, claiming that he was the rightful inheritor, or at least an inheritor of the books, being the only grandson of the previous Rebbe. And the Rebbe's wife, made a deposition. She said a powerful statement. In Yiddish, the words were, Der Tate hat belangt zu Chassidim, und was hat belangt zu Chassidim. She said, my father, referring to the previous Rebbe, belonged to the Chassidim, and what he owned belongs to the Chassidim. So the trial lawyer for Chabad, Mr. Nat Lewin, he expressed the following. The lawyers asked, didn't your father own things? His library, his books? Weren't they his personal property? She said no. Surprised, they said, what do you mean when you say no? Didn't the Rebbe have personal property? She responded, no, my father, the Rebbe, was the property of Chabad. He belonged to Chabad, and there was nothing that he had himself personally. I mean, this is quite powerful. Because the Rebbe had clothing, furniture in the home. They didn't belong to him. They belonged to Chassidim. Just as he belongs to Chassidim, so everything that he owns belongs to Chassidim. It's just amazing. Think about it. It's so the opposite of the world. What's the way of the world? You belong to the leader. You have a leader. You belong to him. Right? You belong to him. And here's the opposite. He belongs to you. He belongs to you, not you individually, but to the Chassidim. He belongs to you. Similarly, Moshe and Aaron, they belong to the Jewish people. Yeah, they could accumulate more mitzvahs. They could have done more to fulfill their personal lives. But a true leader lives and breathes everything for the people. That's who and what they're all about. And this is evident of Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of his life. He prays to God that he wants to enter into the land of Israel. Why does he want to enter into the land of Israel? Because there's so many mitzvahs that he could do there that you can't do. That's exactly what we're talking about, right? All the mitzvahs. The only one that was unique was the Paschal Lamb offering. That could be done in the desert. But all other mitzvahs in the land of Israel, he wants to enter because he wants the opportunity to be able to do all the mitzvahs of God in the land. He prays 515 times. And then, no, it's not given. Why isn't he? So the Midrash tells us God said to Moshe, how do you desire to enter Israel? Can this be compared to a shepherd who led the king's flock to a grazing ground and flock was captured? When the shepherd sought to enter the palace, he was denied entry. The king explained, if you enter now, what will people think? That you stole the sheep? Here too God said to Moshe, it is praiseworthy to lead 600,000 Jews from captivity in Egypt, bury them all in the desert, and then lead a new generation into Israel. People will say that the generation that was buried in the desert has no share in the world to come. Rather, remain by their side and be buried with them, and only enter with them when they will enter in the future. Mashiach. Scripture therefore states, you shall not bring this congregation, meaning rather you will lead the congregation that emerged from Egypt with you. How did Moshe respond with this discussion? The Midrash tells us, dear God, may Moses and 100 like him die rather than harm a single toenail of the people. course, Moshe wants to have all the great experience of a mitzvah and everything that there's involved in connecting to Hashem. That's if it doesn't shame or hurt anybody. To have that extra mitzvah, to have the extra merit in your own life, a true Jewish leader forgoes that. It's never about the leader. It's always about the people. The leader is there for the people. The opposite notion that exists in communism and even in democracy. Every leader says he's there for the people, but nah, he's just there to have power over the people, ultimately. So, there's a chassid went through such terrible things, being arrested and under the communists. He spent 5 years in Siberia. Rabbi Matisov, his children, they're shluchim in Calgary and France, and some friends of mine. And miraculously, got out on a fake passport and got out of Russia, made his way to Israel. And in 1950, Rebbe becomes Rebbe. And he gets married. He got married late because of what he had to go through in Russia. And second. And he went through many hardships. Ready to, after all the hardships settle, the Rebbe says to him in 1950, I want you to move to Casablanca, Morocco. He wasn't French, didn't have the language, nothing. And the Rebbe says to him, we are not private individuals. We are to be beacons of light to illuminate the lives of others. 1, 2, 3 individuals, and that there will be an impact on those individuals that in turn will impact others and in the entire globe. And shortly after his wedding, moves to Morocco, and indeed has tremendous impact. We are not our own people, private individuals. We are beacons of light. Light attracts light. And we need to kindle the light of others till they're able to stand on their own. And we do anything and everything to help. Because that's our mission. That's our purpose. That's what we're here for. That's not just the leaders like the Rebbe, but as the Rebbe said to Rabbi Matisov, we're beacons of light. Each and every single one of us. Or as in the story of the Alter Rebbe, was one of his great students, a scholar, Rabbi Yosef, great genius, great scholar, and he was getting ready to become pulpit rabbi, and he asking for audience with the Alter Rebbe to get his okay for where he should be a pulpit rabbi. Pulpit, I use pulpit, that's like today, but a rabbinic post, pulpit rabbis. And the Alter Rebbe says to him, for your soul, it'd be better for you to be a wagon driver. Now, he's a soldier. Rebbe says, but even though he's a soldier, he doesn't do it right away. 10 years, he's still studying. Finally, he gets an offer that's an amazing offer. He says, okay, no. The Rebbe told me, a wagon driver. So it is. Becomes a wagon driver. You have to understand, a great scholar, to do such menial kind of task. Comes to a town. This the first near the end of the first year, comes to a town, and he's introduced to a Jew that needs a ride. So he says to him, no problem, but I can only do tomorrow morning after services. He's, makes a face. He was a Jew who removed himself, worked for the governor, and was, high-ranking individual. Says, fine. At night, he hears his prayers because he's in the inn where they're both staying, and he's like taken. He hears beautiful prayers, and it reminds him about the way he was brought up. And in the morning, further, he hears him praying, and he's just torn. And he tells him, after he finishes his prayers, please help me. I want to return back to our people. I want to do tshuva. He actually left his wife and children. And he wants to return. So he takes him, at the time, the Alter Rebbe had passed already. And he brought him to Mittler Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe's son, who was the Rebbe then. Dove there, brings it to him. And Mittler Rebbe helps guide him on his path of tshuva, of return. And he tells now to Rabbi Yosef, you can now put up the shoe horses of your horse. You don't need to be a wagon driver anymore. You've done what you need to do. And so he actually then, took a rabbinical position and so on. What did the Rebbe see? That there's one person he has to touch to bring back home. He has to be a beacon of light. He didn't even know he's a beacon of light. All he did was daven like he always davens, with such fervor and such depth of heart. But he was being who he is, that beacon of light, and that helped this person to return. Could you imagine? Alter Rebbe told him, what's better for your soul is all your Torah learning and all of everything, have one person come back home. Yiddishkeit, Torah mitzvahs, is more valuable for your soul. Of course, that was sufficient, because after that, he didn't need to do that anymore. And that's what he needed. So likewise, each and every one of us, that beacon of light, we are, and it's not about us. It's what we're needed for. And there are those that need us. That's why we have to be totally dedicated. We're here to serve, not to be served. We're here to give and not to take. Okay. So maybe merit to be like Moshe Rabbeinu Arna Kayin, the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe, and to do it as a Chassidim have always done it. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Matisov, and each and every one of us. Hi. All right, folks. Thank you. Any questions?
Will there be TLC?
PRC, 20 minutes. Yes. All right. We'll see you shortly.
See you in a bit.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.